Hello friends and welcome to a second helping, you lucky people of the Kings of Anglia Ipswich Town podcast. I'm your host, Mark Heath, and at the end of earlier this week's show, I said we'd be back if things were happening, and boy, have they been happening. Kings of Anglia, of course, brought to you in association with manscaped.com. Two boys with me today, I'm pleased to say, have been very busy this week. Hutchie Hogan, Andy Warren, and Stewie, the Dr. Stuart Watson. We're going to get straight in, boys, because there's been so much happening. I won't bother with convoluted intros, asking you how you are, all that sort of stuff. Because at midday today, Ipswich Town launched their away kit, which I thought we'd start with chronological order in time-honoured fashion here on KOA. And I haven't actually seen it yet, boys. I was out running. We knew it was being launched at 12, and so I've made a point of not checking the kit out. So I'll do that while you give me your first impressions. Your thoughts, please.
Well, don't we need to look at you? Well, we need you first. If you're the one that hasn't seen it, I don't want to influence you.
Oh dear, oh dear.
I want to know. I want pure.
That's thoroughly underwhelming, isn't it? I wish I hadn't bothered with that now. It's basically a t-shirt, a white t-shirt. Why can't they get creative, boys? Why can't we have a pink away kit? Why can't we have something exciting? That's really boring. What do you make of it?
It's this Ipswich Town colour palette, which on the one hand I like, because I think it's nice to have that kind of the identity, I guess. But there is life outside of white, orange, and red, and a bit of black now and again. That stray. That's what I'd like. You all know my thoughts on away kits. Mark Ashton's here now. He's brought Bristol City DNA with him. Give me the colourblind Joker, psychedelic, purple nonsense away kits. This one is fine. It's missing. It's lacking anything in the sleeve and collar department, I would say. If you stick some black on the collar and the sleeve cuffs, it would be fine. But yeah, it's fine.
It's like fine. A random kit generator, isn't it? You just put in the colour, you say, what do you want? How brave do you want to be? And they put, not at all. How creative do you want to be? Not at all. Here you go. You've got a white t-shirt with a bit of black down the side. There you go. Have that. Stewie, am I being harsh?
I guess the people that like it will say it's clean, it's crisp, it's classic, it's wearable, more in a public setting. It's not too football shirty in your face. That they would be the people that defend it. For me, yeah, I want a little bit more going on. As Andy says, it's fine, isn't it? We overanalyze football shirts, but when you're paying...
Whoa. I don't think you can overanalyze them, Stuart.
Careful with your words there, Stewie. Remember who you're talking to.
How much is this?
48 pounds.
It's quite a lot of money just for sort of a plain white t-shirt with a logo on it, isn't it?
What colour are the shorts? Do we know? Have they done the shorts?
Black shorts with white and black socks, which they look quite nice, to be fair. With both of these kits, I'd say thank goodness for the Ed Sheeran sponsorship, because I think that kind of lifts them both, doesn't it? The home one, I've seen the home one in the flesh now a few times, like with fans at games. Obviously, we all have at the weekend. I think it looks nicer in real life. The pinstripes are a little bit darker. There are pinstripes on this one as well, horizontal ones, but they're very, very faint. So I'd be interested to see what they look like. You get closer to your phone there, Mark. If you move a little bit closer, you might see them.
Yeah, I like the keeper's kit. The keeper's kit's nice, the all black keeper's kit, but the white shirt, it's not really for me.
I think it's basically the template of the Germany kit from the Euros, the home kit. So if you have a look back at that, obviously when you're dealing with a big manufacturer like Adidas, you tend to get the trade-off, especially when you're a club a little bit further down the chain, is that you don't get bespoke, you get a bit of a template, and it looks like that Germany template for me. But the thing that made that Germany kit was the horizontal stripes that were that bit darker. They stood out a bit more, but it was the colours of the flag on the end of the sleeve that I liked on that, and Ipswich have just gone completely plain. Nothing on the sleeves, nothing on the collar. As you say, those little horizontal pinstripes are barely, well, certainly from the pictures you can barely see them. It might look a little bit different in the flesh, but it's okay.
I wish
And
I
you
hadn't.
know-
I wish I hadn't bothered not looking at it, boys, because I was expecting. Because obviously, I'm notably prone to hyperbole and excitement, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll be able to get all excited about the kit, and instead, it's led me to feel rather underwhelmed, and now I'm not really up for the podcast.
next year, next year, we'll try the same thing again next year, and hopefully comes off. You know what this does mean, and surely this means this.
What?
Is the Barcelona kit going to live on again as a third
It
kit?
never
Forever.
dies. It never
will-
dies. I was just looking at the teams that they might wear this against. I think it will be okay for Wimbledon, Gillingham, Portsmouth, Shrewsbury, and Wickham. Speak now if you think that there's any
No.
potential clashes there. But Sheffield Wednesday and Wigan, you're going to have some
Yeah.
problems there, aren't you? So you're right, Andy. The Barcelona kit lives on.
It
They
will
get it
never
out the
die.
cupboard again.
But they'll have to put a different sponsor on it again for the third year in a row. It's just going to keep having different sponsors slapped on it. Get some new shorts. What shorts can you find in the old Adidas cupboard? Play with them. Put some pink socks with it instead of the yellow. This is where the fun begins.
Yeah,
Hillsborough and the DW.
it's just we were talking about it before we started recording, Hutchie. I long for creativity with the kit, and then we're talking about the new Inter Milan kit, which is an absolute banger. And I can see that some people probably hate it, but I love it. It's kind of part Strictly Come Dancing, part football shirt, part disco ball. It is astonishing with a golden badge, and it's going to look amazing under lights. It's going to look part football, part dancing on the pitch.
It's
Why can't we have
almost
something like that?
snake skin, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. That's the sort of thing I want. I really want something like that. But I suppose beggars can't be choosers when you're down in League One and you're not a Serie A Italian giant with millions of fans around the world. There you go. All right then, boys. Should we move on from the kit to the truly sexy stuff? Because the kit isn't sexy at all, I'm afraid. Sexy stuff, boys. We said on Monday we're talking about various things. They already had 6 in the door. Now there's 8 in the door. And breaking news, boys, just to my phone. Ipswich Town have won League One 2020, 2021, 2022. The title has been lifted. I am obviously being a bit facetious here. They do still need some central defenders and some wingers and maybe a few other positions. But boys, they've signed Joe Pigott, a striker who scored 22 goals last season in League One. And they've also signed the best player in League One, according to some sources, Scott Fraser, 14 goals, 6 assists to his name in League One last season. Many fans on Twitter of other clubs, Sunderland notably, saying give Town the title now, essentially. Let's start with Scott Fraser because that happened yesterday, Stewie, late yesterday, as it always seems to do. Your thoughts, please.
Great signing, this, isn't it? I was just looking at the stats. You quoted the stats from last season. If you want to go back the last 3 seasons with Pigott and Fraser combined, they've scored 79 goals between the two of them over the last 3 seasons. So those numbers speak for themselves, don't they? I've had to look up the definition of midfield goal scorer because we've not had one of those for some time. Granted, 9 of those goals came from the penalty spot last season for Fraser, but it's the assists probably that excites me more with him. It's all very well talking about the lack of goals, but it was the lack of chances created, which was the real issue for Ipswich Town last season. So Fraser was kind of dubbed one of the most talented players in Scottish football during his time at Dundee United. He's come down to Burton. He's been really good for them for a couple of seasons in League One. Looked like he was going to the Championship. Opted to sign for MK Dons, was really good for them last season, looked like he was going to the Championship this summer, and Ipswich, as they have done with so many of these signings already, have managed to persuade somebody to stay in League One and join an ambitious project. So 2 big signings for Ipswich Town this week.
Yeah, but just keeping with Fraser, it's the classic undisclosed fee. Stewie, have you got any insight there as to what kind of figure we're talking? Any at all? No?
Nope. Just going on reports from earlier in the window when he was sort of heavily linked to Hull, there was talk about high 6-figure fee. So a bit like the Matt Crook situation that we're talking about, a player being in the final year of his contract, and what is that player's value in the current sort of COVID depressed market? A player that probably would have been valued well in excess of £1 million. The combination of COVID and contract probably means that he's fallen below that.
And what? How long's he here for? What is it? A couple of years, 3 years?
3-year deal, which seems to be obviously the norm under Marcus Evans was always sort of 2 years with an option under this Ashton regime so far. It's certainly for the bigger signings, they've been 3-year contracts.
I'm going to come on to you, Hutchie, in a second, but I saw a stat put out, I think, by Ashley Simmons on Twitter last night, which I retweeted because it was staggering. Most passes in the final third, most successful passes in the final third last season, Scott Fraser sits atop of that list, ahead of Bruno Fernandes, Emi Buendia, Andy Robertson, Mason Mount, and Archie Collins. 4 clear of Bruno Fernandes. So that's exciting, Hutchie. Famously someone who never really gets excited, but can I tease out a little bit of excitement about this Scott Fraser lad?
Do I really not get excited about
You do about kits. You do about kits. That's the one thing you get excited about.
I think this is a really good signing for Ipswich Town. The thing I like about this one is obviously that stat's good. We know the final third's the issue, but it seems to me, and I'm not going to pretend to know the ins and outs of exactly how this has happened, but it seems to me like Ipswich have kind of taken advantage potentially of Hull's situation. If they were really keen on him, I think they're one of the Championship clubs that's got a softish transfer embargo on them at the moment. I quite like the ruthless nature of it, just coming in, taking a player that they want. I like it. It's just a ruthlessness in the market that we've not really been used to. It's another League One club that Ipswich have come in and taken their best player. There's been a few of them this summer as well. Pigott would be another one, and yeah, it's all shaping up really nicely.
Talks about the boxes that these signings were ticking and what the sort of the attributes were that Paul Cook was looking for. Both 27 years of age, so we talked about that sort of being a real gap in the squad last season, that we had sort of players right at the back end of their careers, like your Chambers and Scoos. You had players at the sort of beginning of their careers, but crucially, those kind of hang your hat on prime years players were lacking, and the ones that you did have weren't doing it for whatever reason. The sort of Hurst signings of Nolan and Jackson, etc. So clearly the signings so far have been in that sort of 25, 26, 27 age bracket, which is good. And as Andy says, the reaction of the clubs that Ipswich are signing these players for, their fans, speaks a lot. They're all gutted that these players have left. These are the best player, if not one of the best players at these football clubs. You know, Wes Burns, Lee Evans, Pigott, Fraser. These are players that other clubs wanted. These are players that fans of those clubs didn't want to lose, and that's exciting. Rather than in the past, it kind of felt like Ipswich were kind of picking up cast-offs is a bit strong sort of thing, but it's kind of shopping in a completely different market. And and now they're in a position to go out, identify players they really want that other clubs don't want to lose, but are able to get it done. And that's it's a strange feeling for us, isn't it?
Yeah. It felt to me like in years past, like every player that Ipswich bought had to be, in inverted commas, available. And I don't know if all of these, obviously Pigott's different, he was out of contract, but I wouldn't necessarily think that all of these players, their clubs would have made them available. Ipswich have come in and forced the issue and taken them, which it's kind of what Ashton was painted as before he came in, and it's kind of in action now. It's certainly a very, very different way of working in the transfer market, that's for sure.
It's exciting. Stewie, where's Fraser going to play? We know Raheem Harper and the Evans are probably going to take those deep sitting midfield roles. Is he brought in to be the number 10 then, do you think?
It's a very, very good question. He kind of played a mixture of 10/8 for MK Dons. At times last season, they almost kind of operated with 2 number 10s. And he was, certainly a more advanced midfielder. The immediate question on everyone's lips was, does that end the interest in Matt Crooks? My understanding is no, it doesn't, which is exciting in itself. We all sit here and start writing out our starting 11s for the first game of the season and who would play. And we overlook the fact that very rarely is every one of your players available at all times throughout the season. So Crooks can play deeper in midfield. Fraser could play deeper in midfield as well. Rotation is required at times. So I don't think it would be a case of kind of having one above the other. It would just be good to have a power pack squad that you can call upon.
You've spoken about it a number of times, haven't you, already, boys? But in terms of players coming in who can play multiple positions, and that certainly seems, again, to be part of the traits that Paul Cook wants that's going into this funnel, the data dashboard funnel, because that's exactly what they're signing, isn't it? Utility guys.
Yeah, they're building. They're not just building a starting 11. It's pretty. They're building a squad here. So the fact that, just if you're thinking out loud, if you've got Fraser and Matt Crooks, say, fighting for a place in that side, that's crazy. At this point, if I was John Nolan today, I'd maybe be I'd be gritting my teeth a little bit. I think the fight for him is maybe that little bit harder than it was with someone like Fraser coming in. But they're building a squad here, and a squad of players that are gonna have to fight for their places. That's a really good thing.
Okay, that's Fraser.
It shows you how far Ipswich have come in the space of about 12 months. Because go back to August last year, and John Nolan was probably Ipswich's Player of the Month in the first month of last season, and was right up there. And we're now talking about him gritting his teeth at the fact that he's right at the bottom of a midfield pecking order. You would imagine, as it stands, we're talking hypothetically because Crooks has still got a way to go, obviously. But the fact that Ipswich are still looking in that position says everything about how they've really levelled up this squad and are across a number of positions.
Okay, so Scott Fraser's in the door. He's signing number 8 on Monday. After we'd recorded the pod, frustratingly, on Monday, we got wind that something else was happening, and it duly was the sexiest of possible signings that any club could make. A striker, not just any striker, the mythical 20-goal-a-season striker, Joe Pigott, coming from AFC Wimbledon. Hutchie, what do you make of this one?
The sexy pig. He was good in the games. He was good in the games against Ipswich, wasn't he? He was a physical force. In the 3-0 loss at Wimbledon, he didn't score that night, did he, Stu, from memory? I don't think he did score, but him and I think it was Ollie Palmer up front were a real handful for Ipswich. He missed a penalty. Cornell saved that at Portman Road in the return a few weeks later. But he can finish. He's a good finisher, that lad. He's a big boy as well. He's not. I wouldn't say he's a target man, because I think that label is maybe a bit unfair on some players. Maybe Ollie Hawkins is a target man, but he looks a well-rounded striker to me, with some muscle and weight to add. And to bring in a 20-goal striker from another League One club is good business, especially on a free transfer.
Again, with championship interest. So he scored 22 goals last season, got 9 in the COVID shortened season, so would certainly have probably gone into double figures that season, and then 18 the season before, all in Towns League. Stu, you wrote a profile of Joe. What do you make of him as a signing? And is this the marquee kind of striker signing that Town were looking for?
I guess people will kind of balk when you refer to anyone signing from AFC Wimbledon with the greatest of respects as being a marquee signing. But for me, anyone, as you say, who's scored more than 20 goals in the previous season has to fall into that bracket. He's not just done it once, he's done it twice in recent years. He scored 18 goals a couple of seasons back as well. And you've got to remember, this is for an AFC Wimbledon side that has been struggling and scrapping for their lives every year over the last few seasons. They've stayed up by the skin of their teeth a couple of times, and Joe's goals have played a big part in that. He seems like a sort of a very level, grounded character off the pitch as well. When you look at his interviews, I did see someone refer to him as Rodney from Only Fools and Horses on Twitter the other day. I can't remember who that was, but having watched a few more of his interviews, I can kind of see that. He's very sort of straight down the line, but I think he's not. He's going to be absolutely fine to deal with as a character, but clearly someone who believes in his confidence. Is someone who's on an upward curve. You're getting him sort of has maybe ironed out a few kinks over the last few years. You're getting him sort of approaching his prime with a bit of rawness has gone, but still a bit of room for growth. And these are players that are being signed in mind for not only a promotion push, but being sort of ready for the championship as well. I mean, it's the number of championship clubs linked with Joe Pigott it'd be quicker to name the ones that weren't than were. So, and as we said before, good signings, good players will attract others. And I'm sure, Fraser's referenced it in his interview that, you see the players that Ipswich are signing and you want to be part of that. So hopefully it creates a bit of a snowball effect from here.
You watched that interview with Joe Pigott, and to me, Hutchie, I think it's clear you found your spirit animal in a footballer, because he is so laid back. He may as well be horizontal, and he speaks so slowly as well, which is great for journalists because it's easy to transcribe what he's saying. Interesting in that interview, though, he said that Paul Cook's told him he's going to be really hard on him, and that's what he needs. He says, "I need a firm hand sometimes. I'm too laid back." So they've got Pigott, they've got Bon, and they've got Norwood. Hutchie, is the search for strikers over?
I think so. I'll be honest. I'm really happy with the way that they've gone in this. Because when we were talking a few weeks ago, and there was talk about Jermaine Defoe, and then you start throwing names around about people like, oh yeah, Connor Wickham's available, and I don't know. I don't know. That didn't really sit right with me. I'd describe the way that they've gone in terms of their striker recruitment and the whole team, to be honest, as being honest and sensible and level, and not stretching to sign a player who's got experience at higher levels but has got real issues with fitness or things like that. But are names. I like the way that they've gone. They've gone for Pigott, who's a 20-goal a season League One striker, honest striker, League One striker, a really good League One striker. Macaulay Bon, yes, he's played in the Championship, but he's kind of taken an honest route to being where he is. They've not gone out and splashed cash or anything like that. They clearly know what they're doing. They clearly know they're approaching a League One promotion campaign and assigning the players that go along with that. Look, it'd have been, of course it would, to have Jermaine Defoe at Ipswich. I know it never really got that far, but it would have been exciting. Of course it would. But for me, the sexy pig is much more my cup of tea, and I think it's much more of a route out of this division and hopefully sustaining it in the Championship, because I know we're talking about League One promotion push here, but there's always at the other end of that is the Rotherham United pitfall, where you need to be building something that can sustain something as well. And I think all of these signings, all of them, fit into that so far.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Stuart alluded to it earlier. Both these guys have signed 26, 27 years old, 3-year deals. Got them tied up for long term, going up hopefully, and then into the Championship and pushing on through there. Hutch, you've alluded to it there. It's something very important we have to address. Nicknames. Joe Pigott, his nickname apparently is Pigs, from what I can tell. You're calling him the sexy pig.
I'm not called. I've called him that.
Okay.
That might be where it ends. This is your job.
I've got, it's a work in progress again. So far, I've got Goal Hog. See what I've done there? Goal Hog? No. And the Porcine Predator, which I quite like. But again, I'm judging by your faces, boys. You're humouring me.
I like. I'll tell you where I'm at with Goal Hog, right?
Yeah.
I like it, but that's a negative. That's a negative thing. That's what people get called in the playground, where they're
eating up the goals.
No, a Goal Hog. You're a goal hanger. You're a hog. That's lazy to me. That feels like someone who's just hanging around, not really pulling their weight.
Okay.
But doing the business. But in general, I like the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a work in progress. Let us know if you've got any better ones.
Could he share the big porker with our very own?
No, that's a good shout. He is relatively big, isn't he?
He's bigger than our big porker.
Our big porker's fairly diminutive, to be fair. So the big porker, I like that. Let us know, everyone, KOA Army, if you've got any other contenders. And for Scott Fraser, boys, it's obvious for me. My boxing background, you hear the name Fraser straight away. Smoking Joe Fraser. Smoking Scott Fraser works, doesn't it, boys? Yeah. Obviously, don't smoke it. Don't smoke. It's very unhealthy. But as a nickname, Smoking Scott Fraser. Hutchie, what are you saying?
I've got no comment. I've got no comment. And I've got no alternative either, so I can't knock you down. We'll have to go with it.
That is the working title for Scott Fraser, Smoking Scott Fraser. Smoking Joe Fraser, of course, famously an iconic line in Wu-Tang Clan, "Smoke on the mic like Smoking Joe Fraser." Yeah. So hopefully we can get Scott Fraser in the Wu-Tang's next song.
You're bringing those sort of references on the Pigott theme. I was thinking of the quote from the film Babe with that'll do, pig.
That'll do, pig.
That'll do, pig, when he scores the winner or something.
Oh, we can have that for the end of the season, can't we, boys? When he scored 35 goals.
Calling on very different cultural references here, you and I.
Have you got one for Hladky?
No, I haven't. I haven't really thought about. I mean, his nickname Vaz, isn't it? Vaz.
Yeah, but that doesn't count.
I need to work on that.
Have a go at that one. I'll be interested to know where you go with that one.
Indeed, from the sublime to the ridiculous, or maybe the serious in this case, boys. We've talked about signings, we've talked about Crooks there. That's not dead in the water. And I've joked facetiously that Town have already lifted the trophy with the signings they've made so far. But clearly, they do still need more. They've got to get centre backs in, including one classic hairy ass centre back, Stu. TM Stuart Watson. How many more, boys, do you think we're looking at now in terms of numbers and positions? Clearly, centre backs got to be part of that. Wingers, you'd still think. What are you saying, Stu?
If you're keeping Holy around, your goalkeeper position is sorted. I don't think they need to go messing about with that. Need another left back. Clearly, Miles Kinlock's out the door, so that's one. I think you need one at least, if not two, centre halves to compete with Wolfenden and Toto Enciala. Midfield, although we've talked about the options, at the minute it is just Harper and Evans and Nolan, isn't it? So you're still probably arguably one short in those two holding midfield positions. Wingers, you've got Burns and Dobra, so I think you probably need a couple more of those. Strikers are sorted, and then you're talking about the number 10 position. That's 7 there that I've reeled off, but you could probably chip away at a couple of those if you go for a player that can kind of play in both positions. If you were to sign Crooks, for example, and then you go, right, well, he's a hybrid 8 and a 10, bit like Fraser, so that's one player for 2. So in short, 5 more, I would say.
Agree, Hutchie? How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We did the interview with Mark Ashton last week. He talked about 5 more. They've got 2 since then. I still think he'd say the same thing now if you asked him again at 5 at least. And I think there might be the odd bonus one on top of that because they're in a position to sign good players if they become available. So I still think at least 5, 6. Maybe if you go beyond 5 to 6, 7. The 2, you maybe sign a little bit of potential there. Most of these players, I think I'm right in saying the youngest is Harper, who is kind of a work in progress of sorts. Penny's obviously not too old, but the rest of them are kind of in primes. So it's clear that's where they're going, and I'm sure that's how the squad will mostly be built. But the club are also in a position if they come across someone that they like at the younger end of the spectrum, they can do that deal as well. So at least 5, I think.
Okay. Balls on the table time in association with our sponsor, manscaped.com. Use code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery. There's a bunch of new stuff coming out from Manscaped, which we'll talk about over the coming weeks, I'm sure. Get involved. Look at the clobber they've got on their website and get yourself some with the 20% discount, which is very much worth having. Balls on the table time, boys. A couple of weeks ago when they signed 6, I asked you who was the best signing for you so far. Now they've got 8. Hutchie, you said at the time Lee Evans was your man, and Stu, you said Raheem Harper. Do either of Pigott, the Big Porker, and Smoking Scott Fraser, do they change your opinion in that regard, Hutchie?
No, not really. I like both the signings, but I, for the reasons that I said before with Evans, I just think he's going to help all these players tick. I think he'll be a benefit to all of the players around him. They're all good players that they've brought in, but I still feel the most enthused by Evans. I think that's not to say the others aren't going to be really, really important to what they do and will grab the headlines with the goals and assists and things, but Evans is the kind of player that I think they really needed.
Yeah, having watched him at Dartford on Saturday, and obviously knowing his background, he appears to be the straw that's going to stir the drink, doesn't he? He's like a Rolls Royce of a footballer, keeping everything together in the midfield and doing everything that you expect of a player in that position. Also, potentially a captain. Stuart, you still saying Harper as the best signing so far?
I think I'd probably have to back a new horse in the race here and say Scott Fraser. Andy talked about Lee Evans being the sort of the most sure thing of the players that have signed thus far. If you look at what Scott Fraser's done over 3 years in English football and previously what he's done in Scotland, I would say he's probably right up there in terms of sure things, in terms of his consistent numbers for goals and assists, which has been a big gap in the squad. But what I will say is I think the biggest signing is probably, or most important signing could still be to come, because we're all getting excited about the goals and the players that are coming at the top end. But I still think that centre half, an experienced leader who potentially might even be the captain, I still think that's a big signing at the moment.
And needs a hairy arse as well, Stu.
Yes.
Well, does he though? He needs, if he has got one of those, he needs to trim it.
Yeah, maybe that's going into the funnel though. Trim it. I can see where you're going. I'll let you go on, Hutchie.
I've got no more to say. I just if you do need to trim it, that you know where to go, don't you?
Yeah, just
is
think.
That a box on the data dashboard?
That's what I'm thinking. Exactly. Yeah, Paul
Cook's next to that.
Paul Cook's filling in his little traits. Centre back must have hairy arse. Into the dashboard it goes. Job done, boys. Maybe that's what's taking so long, because there's not many footballers with hairy arses anymore.
It's a bit like getting your car insurance, where you tick like, do you want legal protection?
Yeah.
Do you want no claims? You can that's basically the data dashboard, but you've just got hairy arse, tick.
Yeah. Maybe that's the real reason.
Those legal protections, they take your premium up, don't they? And it's going to be the same for the hair as well. That will add to your premium when you're when you're shopping for a centre back.
Maybe that's the real reason Sonny Bradley fell apart. Analysis done.
He's brought into the training ground, and a bit like at the airport, or when you get checked into a prison, drop him. He drops his kets, and
he's passed everything. Yeah, he's done
hairless. No,
he's passed every single test. He's the strongest player they've ever tested. He's the fittest player they've ever tested. He's got leadership qualities coming out of every orifice. They get to the arse test. Sorry, Sonny, it's just not hirsute enough. On you go. Go back to Luton.
Back to Luton you go.
Amazing, boys. Is there any other on sexy stuff front? Is there any other news? Obviously, there's been a couple of big things happening this week, which came to us fairly late. Is there anything else you're hearing with your ear to the ground, either incoming or outgoing, that you can share with the KOA Army right now?
Don't get the feeling anything is kind of imminent at this moment in time, but these things can change. They did very well, obviously, the club, to kind of keep these two quite quiet. We only sort of knew about them both fairly late in the day, on the days that they signed. So I've done well after Mark sort of talking about wanting to keep things quite quiet to do that. The Rotherham manager's been talking about Matt Crooks again. He seems to be talking about him every 5 minutes, Paul Warne. I'm quite intrigued that he's kind of referencing Ipswich directly and going public with conversations that he's had with Paul Cook about it. And yet it's being reported now that there's 2 championship clubs who've had bids rejected, but none of those clubs are getting named. It's that says to me that Rotherham quite clearly are desperate to sell. They need the money. They don't really want to sell him to Ipswich because it's a League One rival. But for the reasons that Andy's outlined earlier, championship clubs, certainly championship clubs that are looking at sort of League One / championship players, a lot of those aren't in the financial position to make their moves at the moment. There's a few of those soft transfer embargoes knocking about, Hull, Derby, someone else as well, I can't remember. So Ipswich are in the position to kind of make their move quite early, and they're pushing quite hard for Crooks, and I'm sure the tipping point can't be too far away. So I'm intrigued to see how that one plays out.
It's exciting, isn't it? A proper transfer saga back and forth. And it's not a drill, friends. July the 15th, Ipswich Town have already signed 8 players. Fantastic stuff. In terms of outgoing players, and potential outgoings, we should hark back to Tuesday night at Bury Town, because the bomb squad were in action. Stu, you're currently in COVID jail, so you failed a late fitness test. You were pinged by the COVID police, which meant that Hutchie had to fly solo at Ram Meadow. Yeah, and it was an interesting game, Hutchie, because Town missed out on their first silverware of the season in a penalty shootout. What did you make of the game, and anyone particular who stood out? And obviously, the four members of the bomb squad all played in the first half.
Yeah, just for those that didn't maybe know, that the silverware is the Martin Swallow Challenge Trophy, which is a new trophy. This is the first time it was played for. They're hoping to play for it every pre-season between Ipswich and Bury in some form. It's named after a supporter who is, I think he's on the committee of Ipswich Town Supporters Club, Martin, and he's also a long-time volunteer at Bury. He's currently suffering with an illness. He was at the game on Tuesday night and was quite overwhelmed by it, I thought, but I could hear in his voice as we headed towards 90 minutes of a 1-1 draw. What happens if this game ends in a draw? Who gets the trophy? There were jokes about cutting it in half. Mark Ramsey from the Supporters Club brought it out all in bubble wrap and was ready to chop it up into pieces. But I just at some point just heard Paul Cook bellowing from the back of the stands, "We're doing penners! We're doing penners, lads!" And so they did. And for the second time in 3 days, the Ipswich fans that were there would have seen their team lose on penalty kicks. Not quite as high stakes as the European Championship final on Sunday night, but they did ultimately lose. But yeah, a new trophy, which hopefully they're going to play for every year. Anyway, the bomb squad, that's what you're more interested in, isn't it? They all got 45 minutes. Caden Jackson, Teddy Bishop, Miles Kenlock, and Brett McGavin was one of those. No Flynn Downs, obviously. He looks like the one that's likely to depart soon. And if I'm completely honest, I haven't really got an awful lot to report about how the let's call them three members of that bomb squad, Kenlock, Jackson, and Bishop, how they did. Jackson may be the pick of them. Had some good moments where he slipped in down the side and got some crosses in. Had one kind of wriggly run into the box that ended with a shot being blocked. Bishop was neat and tidy, moved the ball around, but didn't have a chance to run with it particularly often. And Kenlock was, again, neat and tidy on the left flank without doing an awful lot in his 45 minutes. Let's just say Paul Cook said the door was ajar for them. I'm not sure if they really are going to force that door open. They certainly didn't do it in this game.
And on another day and another time, the story, if it was a competitive game in quote marks, the story obviously would have been Carlos Edwards, former Town captain, coming off the bench to equalise and then scoring the winning penalty. 42 years old, Hutch. He's still in good shape, isn't he? Still looks like he can do a job.
Yeah, by that point, by the time he came on, Ipswich had changed their entire 11 and it was even. So the first half 11 was the four players we mentioned there, plus the majority of the team that finished the Dartford game, so kind of under 18-y. So the second half 11 was even younger than that. There were some first-year scholars on there, 16-year-olds. And so Carlos at 42 was twice the age of any Ipswich player on the pitch and getting on to 3 times the age of some of them. But yeah, he's looking in decent shape, good penalty. Absolutely no idea where he was playing. He just popped up all over the pitch at various points. I think he really enjoyed himself. That's some former Ipswich colleagues of his in the crowd in various roles. James Scowcroft was there. They obviously all know each other very well from Bury. Alan Lee, Simon Milton. I think he just enjoyed playing in against an Ipswich team. And yep, he was the match winner.
Did anyone
back the years?
You've talked there about the bomb squad. Was there anyone who kind of impressed you, just in terms of youngsters' names? Anyone that we can look out for? Nico Valentine played again, didn't he? I thought he looked really good at Dartford. How did he look this time? Yeah,
he's clearly a very technically gifted little player. He played wide right this time. He's clearly very, very good on the ball. Same as last week, really. I really like the right back, Ad Barge. He started this time and he got up and down really, really nicely. I like the look of him. He's built really well and he's got a lot of attributes. So he's one that I like.
Stewie, as I mentioned there, you're currently in COVID jail. You missed out at Ram Meadow on Tuesday, and now because the next couple of games are behind closed doors, Fulham Saturday behind closed doors, Stevenage next Tuesday behind closed doors, we can't go to either of those games, and I'm not sure how much information we're even going to get about those games. And then you're off on holiday 2 weeks running up to the season, so it means that you're not going to see Town kick a ball again until that epic first Saturday of the season, where everything we've already talked about is going to happen. Packed house at Portman Road, but you're going to miss the Crystal Palace games and the Millwall games and the Colchester games as well, which is going to be interesting. So how are you feeling about that? You're going to go from Dartford away to Morecambe at home when it actually counts.
I am, yeah. I'll be an interested follower, like everybody else, of Andy's reporting and listening in on the podcast and stuff. I'm sure I will be tempted to do a fair bit of work while I'm away as well, leading up to the big kickoff. But try and recharge a little bit, and because as soon as that first ball's kicked, it's pretty relentless. So I'm sure things will look completely different again in almost day by day at the moment. Things are changing quite rapidly, but we've never known a summer like this. It's Ipswich, and normally we're not. This is all a bit unnerving. Andy sort of said the other day, almost England losing on penalties kind of brought back a little bit of almost like this comfort blanket that we've got used to, and it felt like that kind of following and supporting and reporting on Ipswich Town over the years, that sort of quiet deadline day expected at Ipswich Town, and pick up a few frees and loans, and everything's sort of turned on its head, and it's a bit sort of discombobulating in many ways, but in a good way.
We should mention, I think since we last spoke, you broke the Flynn Downs to Bournemouth story, didn't you? We might just have a quick chat about it now. Is there any kind of update on that? Just quickly kind of go back over the tale as you understand it.
Pretty well progressed from what I gather. I think there's every chance that will happen unless there's any last minute hitches. But I think Flynn had handed in the transfer request, hadn't he, last summer after the Palace move, which was understandable when a Premier League club comes, and then the season wasn't what he or Ipswich Town wanted. And I think he'd sort of made it clear to Paul Cook that if another opportunity arose in the summer, he would be up for a fresh challenge. I think Paul Cook had made it sort of clear to sort of almost a blanket message to everyone across the squad that you need to feel a bit of pain off the back of last season. So the two parties probably just weren't on the same level with that. Ipswich have gone down their route, a bit like Andre Dizelle and Lancaster and others. Maybe sort of Flynn coming away from the Ipswich bubble and doing something different might be good for him, and it will enable Ipswich, if they can get a decent deal for him, to reinvest that in some of these exciting deals of their own that they're doing. So Bournemouth's a good move for Flynn Downs. I think Scott Parker, looking at the style of player that Scott Parker was, you would imagine that's a really good fit for Flynn Downs, and he'll see probably a lot of himself in Flynn. So obviously a club that's been in the Premier League for several years recently, that finished in the playoffs last season. So a good move for Flynn. And as much as I think he's a really top player, and I'll be sad to see him go, maybe the timing is right for Ipswich as well, just to really start afresh.
Okay, what is a decent deal for Flynn Downs, Hutchie, from a Town point of view? We may never know. It may be one of these undisclosed things, but are we looking similar to Andre Dizelle, do you think, kind of the £1 million mark?
Similar mark, I'd say. Maybe a touch more. I think on the Dizelle deal, there was, am I right in saying, Stuart, that there was some room to get some future protection in there on Andre's deal in terms of sell-ons down the line. That's right, isn't it? But given that, so much of that was down to the release clause, I think Ipswich are in maybe a better negotiating position with Flynn Downs to get those clauses in. So I'd hope there'd be maybe a few more of those in it. But I think in terms of a base fee, I think you're looking at a similar level to Andre's. I feel a lot more disappointed about this one, if I'm honest, than some of the other sort of homegrown players that have departed. Not because of the Not because of the circumstance. I'd agree with Stu in terms of everything that's gone on. The time is right for this to happen. Flynn, I think the desire to leave Ipswich has never. I'm surely it's never gone away since last summer. There was never a time where that was reconciled in his head that he was bang up for being here. I think his head had left Ipswich last summer. But just I don't know. Just there's a real disappointment there because he's a player that fits everything that this manager wants. In terms of his ability, attitude, all those things. He fits everything that Cook wants in a midfielder. So it's just a shame that by the time Paul Cook has inherited him, he's kind of in the place that he is, because had he not been, I think he would have been a real central player to what this is now for Ipswich. But given where the two parties are at, I think you have to allow him to leave now. It's not. It wouldn't be a good thing for Flynn to still be here.
I think he'll play in the Premier League. I think he'll get to the Premier League. I've got no doubt about that. He's got the attributes to get there, and I think this Bournemouth move is probably a really good stepping stone towards that, be it sort of promotion with them or moving on again. Bournemouth have been a decent little club to negotiate with, haven't they, for Ipswich in recent years? They got really good money for Tyrone Mings, so they've kind of got this tag of a club that's maybe overpaid a little bit on their transfer dealings over recent years. So hopefully Ipswich can get some good money for a player they've obviously nurtured from the age of 8 years of age, and it enables some of these other deals that we're talking about, the Crooks and Salinas and things, to happen.
Here's a scenario for you. How do you think this one works out, right? Flynn goes to Bournemouth, good club, good move, competing at the top end of the Championship, brilliant. Bournemouth miss out in the playoffs. Flynn's been really good for them. Mark Noble, which is currently beginning what West Ham are describing as his last dance, his final year as a West Ham United player. West Ham United need new midfielder. Swoop for Essex boy, West Ham family fan, Flynn Downs from the Championship. Ipswich get a tidy little sell on. Flynn Downs goes to the Premier League, and the circle is complete. What do you think?
I like it a lot. He's always felt like it's a bit like fate that he's going to end up at West Ham. I can see him, a cheeky chappy Essex boy. I can see the West Ham fans really taking to him, and him almost sort of taking on that noble cult hero status there. But there's a little way to go with that. But I like that hot take, Andy. It's a good one.
We'll replay this.
That could be a legendary hot take, Hutchie. I'm just noting it down now. It's Thursday, July 15th, 2021. If and when Flynn Downs joins West Ham after narrowly missing out on the Premier League with Bournemouth, what are we saying about 2022, 2023 time?
No, next summer.
So it'd be 2022. Yeah. That's the call.
Yeah. He has to replace. He takes the baton from Mark Noble. It's very, very, very straight. That is what happens.
Very specific. Remember where you heard it here first. And before we go, boys, we should mention, since we last spoke, Ipswich Town veterans team had their first pre-season game, a handy 3-0 win over Billericay. Alan Judge, Freddie Sears on target. Luke Chambers, Cole Skuse, Tommy Smith, Frank Noble, Dean Gherkin, Tom Eastman, all in action. Any thoughts on this, Stewie? Seeing Colchester United down the road with Chambers and co?
I'll be honest, it's not front and centre of my mind at the moment. I'm kind of fixated on what's happening here at Portman Road. Wish them well. I think you asked before how I felt about it. I was sort of mild intrigue is what I would describe how I feel about that situation down the A12 at the moment.
Hutchie, same with you?
No, I'm more intrigued than that. I don't know why. I just am. I'll be honest. I don't really care about their 3-0 win at Billericay in pre-season. But I am very much intrigued to see how it goes. I'm just having spent so long writing about all these players, about their pros, their cons, and everything. I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing how they get on in a new environment. As sad as it sounds, there's every chance I might go and try and watch them at some point. It just interests me. I can't help it.
I'm with you. I think it's an interesting thing, interesting experiment. There can't be many cases where a team just down the road has signed so many of one team's players from one season. and they look like they're going to go straight into the starting lineup for next season, plus all the associated former Town players as well. I think it's going to be interesting. We'll see.
I was more interested by the fact their squad numbers were published this week, and Chambers and Skews both got their 4 and their 8.
That was always going to happen, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes you see players change when they fresh start, fresh number, all of that. But I can't help myself. That stuff really interests me. I just can't. They're playing Tottenham next week. I'm considering it next Wednesday.
Interesting.
I probably won't, but yeah, sorry, I can't help it.
That's all right, mate. I like it. Passion, excitement. That's what I want to see. Boys, this is.
You want to make some calls on squad numbers for the new boys now, Andy? Because we've got quite a few more in the build.
That's a good shout. Who gets 9?
I really want Macaulay Bond to have that. I think give the hometown boy his number 9 shirt and watch him fly. That would be. Joe Pigott's worn 39 at AFC Wimbledon, which is obviously available.
That's nonsense.
I mean, Emir Hughes did it, didn't he? He went with 44 all the way and stayed loyal to that. Bart stuck with his 33 all the way, despite opportunities to take the number 1 shirt. Look, Pigott scored all these goals in the 39 shirt. I wouldn't be surprised if he took it. I probably agree with you, Mark. It's silly, but yeah, I could see him taking that again. Who else do you want?
Fraser.
Well, he can't have the number 10 unless Norwood has it taken away from him. I hope they don't publish these too early. I hope what I hope is they get more of the players in to do this properly. Otherwise, you'll be giving people silly numbers. I don't know. He could. Ryan Fraser wore 14 for Ipswich, but I've already said on here that Raheem Harper would look good in 14. So,
who's getting 8 with Cole Skews no longer?
That's Lee Evans all day long.
Okay.
I could not. I will never. Actually, no, I won't say that because you won't let me. I was going to say I won't record another podcast if he doesn't get the number 8 shirt, but I don't think that's feasible, is it?
As a protest, no, we need you, mate.
Yeah. No, that's a sure thing. He's got to be the number 8.
Okay, we will see. Surely it can't be too long before they release the numbers, but as you say, Hutchie, hopefully they wait a little bit longer because it sounds like there's going to be some more players on the way. And again, that's one of the days that you get excited about, genuinely excited about. So fingers crossed you're around for that. Boys, is there anything else to mention? This was meant to be a mini pod. It's stretched well over the realms of half-hour mini pod into 52 minutes of full pod action. Is there anything that you want to add before we take our leave and get back on with various things?
No other business.
No other business. In time-honoured fashion, then, that just leaves me to say, please follow us across all social medias, Kings of Anglia on YouTube. Please on YouTube, because we're right on the verge of 2,000 and we're pushing lots of extra video stuff this season, video exclusive stuff. Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. And obviously also use code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery on their excellent range of clobber, trimming devices, clothing, cologne. They've got the whole lot. And as I say, look out because I think there's some new stuff coming, new and updated stuff coming, which we'll talk about in due course. There you go then. It's been a 2-podcast week, and that can only mean that things are happening at Ipswich Town. The big porker's in the building. Smoking Scott Fraser's in the building. Town have released a very, very dull away kit. The boys are back. You're actually off on Monday, aren't you, boys? Thinking about it. You're actually off on Monday. So we'll be back at some point next week. He says, ruining his own outro.
Just get it done. Cut.
All right, that's it. See ya.